Hello and welcome to Merlin's Manor. Today I'm going to be giving my thoughts on Ticket to Ride Legacy Legends of the West, a game designed by Rob Daviau, Matt Leacock, and Alan Moon, and published by Days of Wonder. I'll need to limit what I say about this game because I'm going to be keeping this review spoiler-free, beyond what you'll experience in the first game, and some vague references to what you can expect as the game progresses. I certainly will not be going into specific mechanisms and components that will be added to the game or story-related material. I will go over some end-of-game stuff that will happen beginning with the first game, as I do not find these things to be spoiler material, as you know these things out of the gate. I also will not go over anything related to end-of-campaign scoring, so that will not be spoiled for you. Since there's not a lot of gameplay elements I can go into detail on, I'm going to keep my gameplay overview extremely brief, since the things I can talk about most who have experienced Ticket to Ride will already know. There will be a few things added in though. The first game or two is really going to be focused around similar mechanisms to other Ticket to Ride games. On your turn, you can do one of three things. You can get 2 train cars from the display, or face down, or 1 train card if selecting a locomotive that is a wild card from the display. The second option you can do is play train cards of a color that matches a route between 2 cities on the board to place down trains. This version has an additional way to gain cards by claiming a route into one of the large cities, which grants you 1 card from the top of the deck. Now, the third option for your turn is to look at 3 tickets and choose at least 1 to keep. Tickets are how you score points, and you'll start with up to 4 tickets and can gain more if you want to. However, you do need to be careful about taking on too many tickets that don't go well together, or tickets too late in the game, because any tickets left over that are unfulfilled will be negative points at the end of the game. You fulfill tickets by connecting your trains from one city on the ticket to the other city on the ticket. One change for the Legacy game from the standard game is that you no longer score points for placing out trains. At the end of the game, you will score points listed on your tickets, both positive for fulfilled tickets and negative for unfulfilled. You'll score points for coins in hand, and you'll score bonus points for using up your trains. The less trains left in your supply, the more points you will receive. So let's go ahead and get into the game review itself, starting with art and components. There are going to be a few components unlocked over the course of the game that I cannot talk about, a couple of which are quite cool, and others are a bit basic. As far as the starting components go, you have the typical basic quality cards for train cards and tickets, with other similar cards being unlocked. The artwork on the cards is pretty basic and what you would expect from a Ticket to Ride game. The board is really cool. You're going to start out with 1 section, and over the course of the game you'll be adding sections of the US map that slot together kind of like a giant puzzle. You have your standard Ticket to Ride trains. There are stickers that you will be adding during the game, like most Legacy-style games have you do. This game also comes with a hole puncher that you'll be using on tickets, and it feels kind of like the old-school conductors punching a ticket as you get on the train, as those are being checked there. Overall, nothing about the art and components blows me away, but it all works well with the game, and there's a decent quality here to the components, especially considering the game is made to play primarily over the course of a dozen games, and you'll be altering the components a bit as you go. Let's now get into talking about ease of play. This game starts out very easy to play, just like any Ticket to Ride game, and it slowly adds more rules to focus on. But since you'll only be adding a rule or 2 per game, it's not that difficult to keep up with the additions either. Our kids had no issue learning the game or keeping up with the rules additions each time those were added. This game shouldn't give anyone issues learning the game and learning the extra stuff as you go along. If you can play standard Ticket to Ride, then you can handle this game as well. There's a little added complexity when it comes to strategy, because there are going to be more things to focus on as the game progresses, and some things that get added will drop off eventually as well. This leads me right into the gameplay itself. Let's go over the gameplay review now. I enjoyed Ticket to Ride, and this version kicks things up a notch. I really wish I could go into more details on what the game does to add more to the system as you go, but as River Song from Doctor Who would say, spoilers. Suffice it to say, the game starts out much like basic Ticket to Ride, but actually with much shorter games, as you start out with like 20 trains, I think it is, and you'll slowly add trains as you go along until eventually you have 56 trains in the final game. The main map starts out much smaller as well. As you go through the game, you're going to be adding trains to your supply pieces to the board, tickets to the deck, which all connect to the first map or stay contained with their own areas so as not to have tickets connecting to as of yet unrevealed locations. And you'll be adding new mechanisms for scoring points with the various locations. You'll also be retiring tickets after you have completed them once or twice, which works to cull the deck of tickets a little as you go. Some of the tickets give you something special when you retire them, which often adds a goal to try for, or some special ability as well as some flavor text. The flavor text is for all to hear, and the special conditions are for your eyes only until you fulfill them or need to use them. It is fun to punch your ticket and then get a little something special to focus on that is just for you. Without revealing too much, as you progress through the game, there are going to be extra objectives to focus on, which will change up your strategy some, from focusing on fulfilling more tickets to trying to get other things done, which I enjoyed very much. And how much you lean into the new goals that are revealed, and how much you focus on fulfilling tickets is really up to you. I also found that some of the new stuff was more appealing to some to focus on, while others only dabbled in those areas and kept to other tasks more. The added depth of strategy, especially as the game went on, is what really bumps this game up for me. Also, there were catch-up mechanisms associated with the legacy aspect of this game, and that whoever got last each game got an added benefit for the next game, while those who got higher up positions were rewarded with a decision that would affect future games, but didn't really give an advantage to the player that selected them. Now, if you don't enjoy standard Ticket to Ride, this game will probably not change your mind about it, unless perhaps you felt it needed just a little bit more depth of strategy, in which case the first few games will start out just as basic as standard Ticket to Ride, with a little bit less as far as what you're doing because you only have 20 cards to put out, but the depth of strategy will ramp up nicely as you go on. There is a bit of luck involved in this game, both from the ticket draws that may or may not go well together, or with what you have already done when drawing those new tickets. And some of the new elements add in some additional luck-based aspects, so if you have an aversion to luck in your games, this also may not be a game for you. But I do think the balance of luck and strategy works really well in this game personally, as someone who doesn't mind an element of luck in my games. Now let's talk about replayability. This is a tough one to gauge. The campaign is 12 games long, and each game, once the campaign really got rolling with the third game, left me wanting to play again to see how many new mechanisms and areas of the board we're going to play and to continue trying for the other stuff that we had unlocked in previous games. After you play through the campaign, there is no resetting the campaign as you have added stickers and you've punched cards. You are left with a unique board, though, that you can play again and again on that unique board, a basic Ticket to Ride game with those additions. There will be some nostalgia as you remember your campaign game and what you added, but beyond that, I don't see this game as having any more appeal than standard Ticket to Ride once you get into replaying the game after your campaign. Granted, the number of tickets involved and the randomness of train cards will leave plenty of variability for you, but the most fun aspects of this game are those legacy aspects that you are unlocking and playing with throughout the game that you won't be playing with in the ongoing game. And so I would think even if I played this game plenty of times as a one-off with the completed board, it's not going to be nearly as fun as the campaign itself, and probably drop a whole point in overall rating for the gameplay without the campaign elements. I'm not quite sure what is involved in the final board state version of the game, but it does seem most of the things that change the game up will not be a part of the game anymore. I think this game could have a modest amount of replayability after the 12-game campaign, but it's not one that I see myself coming back to over and over again. And I find this often rings true with these legacy games that leave you with a final game board unique that is replayable without the legacy elements. I just don't come back to them very often because most of the fun parts of the game involve those legacy elements. Now let's talk about the theme of this game, and I really enjoyed the theme. Not only is this a game about making train routes and fulfilling tickets, but it really feels like you're extending the U.S. train system as you go. You're expanding to different areas, each with different challenges that you will face, and a storyline to go along with the expansion. There are a few thematic elements I really wish I could dig into and explain, but again, spoilers, so I won't go into those things. There's a lot of theme found in this game through events and the various areas and what they require and what might happen if certain events come out. I really like how the theme shows through in the various things you do in each region and how that combines with the story. So now get into my final thoughts on this game. This is my favorite Ticket to Ride experience so far. I've played the original US Ticket to Ride, which I give an 8. I played a couple of small box Ticket to Rides, which I give between a 7 and 7.5. And I've played Ticket to Ride Europe, which I give a 9 out of 10. And this one I was originally floating around on a 9 out of 10 after the first few games, about on the same level as the Europe version. But as the game strategy ramped up throughout the game, this led me to increasing my score to a 9.5 out of 10. There's just so much going on in this game that elevates this game throughout the Legacy campaign, and it felt like it had a good balance of adding new stuff to focus on as other stuff dropped off so you wouldn't be too overwhelmed by everything going on at once. And a lot of the new stuff that was added really changed your focus. Some games I found myself only completing a few tickets while I focused on the other stuff the campaign was tossing in to focus on. I really enjoy the theme of expanding the railway system and all the thematic tie-ins between mechanisms and areas of the board that are being explored. It was a lot of fun as a campaign game. The one thing that I am unsure about is the replayability with the basic game on our unique board. Overall, I feel like the game without the campaign elements is going to fall to an 8.5, and at that point, I might just prefer to play Ticket to Ride Europe. Time will certainly tell on this one. But whether I get more plays of this game in without the campaign or not, I really feel like it was a very worthwhile experience from the campaign experience that we were able to do, because the campaign itself was really great. Keep in mind that our family does enjoy the base Ticket to Ride games, and this Legacy version elevates a game that we already enjoy. If you're not already a fan of the gameplay of Ticket to Ride, I doubt this game will change your mind unless you just felt it was a little too light and needed just a little bit more depth of strategy, in which case maybe this might fulfill that for you. Starting at about the third game, elements are going to start being added to the game that add a greater depth of strategy, and they'll keep getting more involved as you go. It still is not a complex game from a rule standpoint, even when you get into those later games. And even from a strategy standpoint, it still will not become more than probably, I would say, a medium-light game at best. I hope this review has given you an idea of whether this is a game for you or not. If you enjoy Ticket to Ride games and Legacy games, then you will most likely enjoy this game, and I can highly recommend this game to you. If you are not a fan of Ticket to Ride, I'm not sure if the Legacy elements will be enough to win you over. I encourage you also to check out some of my other videos and subscribe to my channel if you have not already done so. I hope you have a great week, and game on.